It was the late 1960s, a time when the world was already shifting. The Vietnam War raged on. Hippies filled the streets. The first whispers of space exploration stirred dreams of new frontiers. But in a quiet corner of Arkansas, far from the protests and headlines, a Navy wife named Dolores Cannon lived a life that could not have been more ordinary. She cooked dinners. She raised her children. She waved her husband off to work. And she had no idea that within months, her world, and perhaps the very foundation of reality, will be torn apart by something she could neither explain nor deny. This is not just the story of a woman. It's the story of what happens when you accidentally stumble on a secret so big, so impossible, that it forces you to question everything you've ever been told about life, death, time, and the universe itself. 1. The Unlikely Seeker. Dolores Cannon was not a mystic. She was not a philosopher. She had never meditated, read esoteric books, or studied the occult. In fact, she was the definition of grounded, a Navy wife in a small Arkansas town, living a modest home, caring for her 4 children. Life was a series of familiar rhythms: family dinners, laundry, school drop-offs, and conversations over coffee with neighbors. She had no intention of looking beyond the veil. But life has a strange way of pushing you onto paths you never planned to take. Her interest in hypnosis started as a simple curiosity, a skill her husband, a Navy man, had learned to help people with habits like smoking. She never imagined that this curiosity would become the doorway to an entirely different reality. At this stage, Dolores didn't believe in past lives, reincarnation, or any kind of mystical phenomena. She was a product of her time, practical, logical, and certain that the mind's only role in hypnosis was to dig into memories of this life. But that certainty was about to shatter in the most unexpected way. 2. The session that changed everything. It began in 1968 with what seemed like a simple request. A local doctor asked Dolores to assist in hypnotizing a woman suffering from anxiety. There was nothing unusual about it. Dolores expected the session to be textbook, guide the woman into a trance, help her uncover suppressed memories from childhood, and give her tools to overcome her fears. But what happened was anything but normal. As Dolores counted her down, the woman's breathing slowed, her body relaxed, and then she began speaking. Not about her childhood, not about her teenage years. She began describing scenes so vivid, so rich in detail, that Dolores felt she was being transported to another world entirely. The woman spoke of walking down cobblestone streets, hearing the clip-clop of horses' hooves, smelling coal smoke in the air. She spoke with an accent that wasn't her own. And then she mentioned a year, 1923, as if it were her present. Dolores's first thought was that it was just imagination. But the level of detail, the emotional weight in the woman's voice, it felt too real to dismiss. 3. The lives that spanned centuries. One life became 2. 2 became 3. The woman began describing existence in different centuries. 1923, 1850, and then ancient Egypt. Each life came with names, cities, customs, even local dialects. She spoke of her clothing, the texture of linen, the weight of jewelry, the smell of oils used in burial rituals. She described sailing down the Nile, attending ceremonies in stone temples, and meeting figures whose names she recited with ease. Dolores still wasn't convinced. The mind can create vivid stories, she reasoned. But her doubt began to crumble when she started fact-checking. She scoured books, historical archives, and maps. Every small detail the woman gave, the name of a street, the placement of a building, the price of goods, matched reality. Even the obscure Egyptian titles the woman mentioned turned out to be historically accurate. This wasn't just imagination. Something else was happening, something beyond the reach of conventional psychology. 4. The first shockwave. Dolores sat frozen, pen in hand, as the woman before her spoke. not as herself, but as someone else entirely. Her voice had changed, softened, almost melodic, with an accent Dolores couldn't quite place. She described the streets of an Egyptian marketplace as if she'd walked them that very morning. The heat shimmering in the distance, the smell of spiced bread and burning incense, the sound of sandals on sun-baked stone. She gave names, precise locations, even directions to buildings that no longer existed. Dolores' mind fought to dismiss it as imagination, but the details were too crisp, too alive. This wasn't some vague dream. This was lived experience. And when she began to fact-check, history books agreed with the woman's every word. That day, something cracked open inside Dolores. A small fracture in the wall of what she thought was possible. 5. The reluctant investigator. At first, Dolores wanted to turn away from it all. She wasn't a psychic. She wasn't a mystic. She was just a Navy wife from Arkansas, for heaven's sake. She had no interest in becoming some eccentric past lives lady. But the questions refused to leave her alone. Late at night, she would lie awake replaying the woman's words, wondering how someone with no formal education in history could recall life in another century with pinpoint accuracy. And every time she convinced herself to let it go, another case would land in her lap. Another client with no reason to fabricate stories, yet revealing entire worlds beyond their current existence. Dolores realized this was no accident. Something or someone wanted her to keep going, and deep down, she knew she would. 6. Cracks in the illusion. The more Dolores worked with these subjects, the more she noticed patterns, things that went far beyond coincidence. Under hypnosis, people would describe the same realms, the same stages of existence between lives, even the same beings who guided them. Different voices, different personalities, yet the same story. It was as though reality itself was stitched together with invisible threads, and she had just started pulling at them. She began to see life not as a single timeline, but as an intricate web of experiences happening all at once, separated only by the limitations of human perception. And once she saw the cracks, she couldn't unsee them. 7. The gatekeepers of knowledge. It wasn't long before Dolores' subjects began to speak of them, beings of light who existed outside time, watching, guiding, sometimes intervening. These entities spoke through her clients with voices that carried a strange authority, as if they were older than the earth itself. They revealed truths about human existence, about why we reincarnate, and about the vastness of the universe that made everything else seem small. They called themselves the Source or the Council, depending on who came through. Dolores would leave these sessions shaken, not out of fear, but out of the sheer weight of the information she was being given. 8. The skeptic's trap. Dolores was not one to believe blindly. She came from a world where you trusted facts, where proof mattered. So she began cross-referencing every detail. If someone under hypnosis described a life as a sailor in the 1700s, she would research ships of that era. If they mentioned an obscure village in 14th century France, she would check old maps. Time and again, the information lined up, often with details so obscure that even she wondered how they could be known without direct experience. This constant validation pushed her further into territory she once considered too far out. 9. The backlash. Of course, not everyone was ready for what Dolores was uncovering. Friends stopped inviting her to gatherings. Local church members whispered about her behind closed doors. Some accused her of dabbling in dangerous things, of tempting evil. But Dolores wasn't chasing attention. She was chasing truth. She knew what she was hearing was real, and she refused to abandon it just to make others comfortable. That stubborn streak, that unshakable belief in following the evidence wherever it led, became her greatest weapon. 10. Beyond past lives. At first, Dolores thought her work was about exploring the past. But the more she dug, the more she realized it wasn't just about where we've been, but about where we are going. Subjects began describing future lives, civilizations far ahead of ours, even other planets where human-like beings lived in peace. Some spoke of Earth's future as a place of unity and understanding. Others hinted at challenges humanity must face first. Dolores realized she wasn't just documenting history. She was recording humanity's blueprint. 11. The multidimensional truth. Over thousands of sessions, a picture began to form. A reality where time doesn't flow like a river, but exists all at once in layers. Every life we've ever lived, every choice we've ever made, every possibility already exists in a vast, infinite now. The human mind simply can't perceive it without help. Dolores' hypnosis method became that key. She was no longer a therapist. She was a traveler, guiding others to the edges of the known universe, then stepping beyond it. 12. The hidden architects. Through her sessions, Dolores began to hear from intelligences that claimed to be architects of reality itself. They spoke of Earth as a school, a place for souls to grow through experience. They explained that we choose our lives, our challenges, our joys, even our heartbreaks before we are born. These beings revealed that nothing in life is random. Every meeting, every loss, every victory is part of a larger design. And once you understand the design, fear begins to lose its grip. 13. Healing through truth. Dolores discovered that this work wasn't just about satisfying curiosity. It could heal. People came to her with illnesses, traumas, or deep emotional wounds. Under hypnosis, they would uncover the root cause, sometimes in another life, sometimes in this one. And once it was understood, the pain would often vanish. She saw physical ailments disappear after a single session. Doctors couldn't explain it, but Dolores knew. It was the mind unlocking the body's ability to heal itself. 14. The expanding audience. As word spread, Dolores' work began drawing people from all over the world. Scientists, historians, spiritual seekers, even skeptics who left her sessions shaken by what they had experienced. She spoke at conferences, wrote books, and trained others in her unique hypnosis method. What began as one strange case in 1968 had become a global movement, one that would change the way thousands saw life, death, and reality itself. 15. The quantum leap. By the 1990s, Dolores' research had evolved into what she called quantum healing hypnosis technique, QHHD. This allowed people to access the deepest levels of their consciousness, bypassing the ego entirely. In this state, they could receive answers from what Dolores called the subconscious, a higher aspect of the self that knows everything about the soul's journey. It was here that the most profound revelations poured in. Messages about the fate of humanity, the interconnectedness of all beings, and the illusory nature of physical reality. 16. Breaking the matrix. Dolores came to a radical conclusion. This reality, what we see, touch, and experience, is not the full truth. It's a construct, a kind of simulation designed for learning and growth. Our thoughts, beliefs, and expectations shape it more than we realize. In her words, the mind creates reality. And once you understand that, you begin to see the matrix for what it is, a playground for the soul. 17. The legacy. Dolores Cannon passed away in 2014, but her work lives on through her books, students, and thousands of case files. She left behind a map, a guide to navigating the hidden layers of reality. For some, her findings remain too strange to accept. But for those willing to step beyond the boundaries of conventional thinking, her work offers a simple but powerful truth. You are far more than you think you are. And this life is only one chapter in an infinite story.